This podcast was recorded on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present. This episode contains strong language and adult themes. Hi everyone, here I am, presenting myself to you, humbly, genuinely, for the last time for this series, from my kitchen sink. I've filled the sink with tea, and I'm dressed as a beefeater, one of the king's guards, with a red buttoned-up jacket and a silly black fluffy hat. Oh, what a range of emotions. I feel anticipation, gratefulness, joy and sadness, and I feel pride. I know it's one of the 7 deadly sins, but I'm also a greedy, lustful sloth, so I'm leaning into it. How are you feeling, the listener? It doesn't matter where you are. I urge you, in a defiant act of self-care and self-expression, to stand on the nearest chair and declare your current emotional state. Be you in a graveyard, or a restaurant, or a board meeting, we must all be better at speaking our truth. Including today, we've spent 15 episodes together, getting wet and wild. There have been times when the harsh realities of climate change and a biodiversity crisis have seemed too great to contend with. But we're going to close out this season with a hopeful message. And it's not hopeful for hopeful's sake. I don't intend to pull the wool over anybody's eyes and pretend like the world isn't on fire. I'm afraid it is. But amongst all the chaos, there are some glimmering rays of justifiable optimism. In this episode, we're going to look at a rewilding case study. An ongoing saga, focused on the return of a native species to its rightful home after 400 years' absence, and the cascading positive impacts it's having on both people and the rest of the environment. A 400-year gap. That's a big gap. That's bigger than the gap between Danielle's teeth before Tyra Banks sent her to the dentist in cycle 6 of America's Next Top Model. It's bigger than the gap between Rihanna albums. It's bigger than the wage gap. Can we joke about the wage gap? Maybe not. Let's move on. Now, I'd like to clarify one thing before I say anything else, to any international listeners who might not be aware. The word beaver is slang for vagina. This is important because about 90% of the jokes in today's episode are going to be based around that pun. Today's episode is about the return of the British beaver. That's right, Britons. The beaver is coming. We're going to do a deep dive into the big, wet, hairy thing that is the beaver. And when I say deep, I mean it. There won't be a part of the beaver that we haven't touched on. They weigh up to 30 kilos, around the same as a Labrador, and have a head-to-tail tip length of over 1 metre. That wasn't a pun. They're the world's second largest rodent after the capybara. Again, not a pun. There are 2 species of beaver, the Hollywood and the Brazilian. That one was a pun. The 2 species are the North American beaver and the Eurasian beaver. The Eurasian beaver is usually a bit bigger than the American beaver. If you're struggling to imagine a beaver, here's a quick description. A beaver has short, soft brown fur, a dark, hairless, flat tail, a bit like the paddle of a canoe, webbed feet, long, orangey-yellow incisors which protrude through the lips, a feature which allows them to chew through wood underwater, and the orange colour of their teeth comes from the fact that these teeth are hardened with iron-rich enamel. Like all rodents, and like my nipples I'm afraid, their teeth never stop growing. They eat vegetation, from grasses and lilies to bark and roots, not fish, contrary to popular belief. You won't catch a whiff of fish on a beaver. And they gnaw away at wood because they use it for construction. Beavers feel safe when they're protected from predators by water. They build dams to form ponds, and within the deep water of these ponds they build their lodges, fortresses surrounded by moats of their own making. Beavers are described as ecosystem engineers because they significantly modify landscapes with their activity, and they are a keystone species, a species which has a disproportionately large impact on their environment relative to their abundance. They maintain the health and stability of the areas they inhabit, and without their presence, these places look very different. Well now, I should say that that's a lovely crash course in beavers. It took me 4 whole minutes to finish. That's my new record. Here's a quote to contextualise today's topic. It's from RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 2, as delivered by Alyssa Edwards. I'm back, 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 back. Again. 5 backs in a row. Gosh, she must have meant it. What a wise and thoughtful lady. And like how she's back, Beavers are back in my home nation. So now, I shall hand you back to my past self. I journeyed to Devon in southwest England to find the first wild living beavers England has seen for centuries. Hi everyone, I'm here in the motherland, that's England for me. I'm in the countryside of East Devon, about 4 hours drive west of London. It might be March for you, but in my world, it's the height of summer. Here, the hazy afternoon sun falls upon a rolling landscape of gentle green hills, cattle grazing in the distance, a horse here and there, and flocks of sheep. Perched upon a hill in the horizon is a farmhouse built of stone. Endless fields of grass define the modern British landscape. They are beautiful, but it's a kind of desolate beauty. From here to the barren Yorkshire moors of the north, to the jagged far reaches of the Scottish Highlands, there is something bleak about the countryside and its endlessness. It's because it's haunted by the ghosts of the long-lost inhabitants of this wet little island. Humans have inhabited Great Britain, which is the island made up of Wales, Scotland and England, for millennia. When the glaciers retreated at the end of the last ice age, around 11,000 years ago, the modern British climate that we all know and love began to emerge. And it's into that environment that our species, Homo sapiens, started to make their way. The land bridge which once connected Britain to mainland Europe, known as Doggerland, disintegrated into the sea, and by 7,000 years ago, the island was formed. Farming arrived in Britain around 6,000 years ago, and replaced hunting and gathering. Stonehenge was built in stages, but the iconic sarsen stones were erected around 4,500 years ago. So, modern humans have been living on this soggy little island, building on it, developing its land, for a while. And there are now 67 million people living here, making it the 3rd most populated island in the world. The combined effects of habitat loss, persecution, and overhunting have driven so many of our native species to local extinction, including the beaver, which had disappeared by the 16th century. They were hunted for their scent glands and for their waterproof fur, which was used for hats. Ancient trees have given way to skyscrapers, and grassy vales paved over with concrete. Where now there are fields of livestock stretching into the horizon, there were once great forests. Where monocultures now spread across the landscape, there were once wild, complex wetlands. Oh dear, my eyelids are fluttering, and I'm gathering sweat around my, never mind. I feel like I'm slipping into a lucid dream. I'm going to lie down on this little patch of grass before I pass out. I think it's going to be a long one. I'm just going to go with it. Not long ago, Britain was a wild place. A diverse patchwork of woodland, wetland, scrubby grassland. An island characterised by a humid, temperate oceanic climate with plenty of water to support an abundance of life. From the floodplains and ranges of low, gentle hills in the mild south, all the way to the ancient Caledonian pine forest in the north, stretching across the highlands. Here, Scots pine trees, gnarled, arthritic, towering things, maybe 500 years old, the things they must have seen. Within these forested mountains, the unusual clicking and popping call of the capercaillie the world's largest grouse, a majestic, ground-dwelling bird who feeds on pine needles and shoots. A bird with impressive black plumage. This male is attempting to attract a female, and so is purposefully drawing a lot of attention to himself. He's being watched by a wildcat, who looks a lot like a tabby cat, but stockier and, well, wilder. But it isn't this tree-dwelling kitty who ruins our capercailzie's day. While the cat watches on in horror, the bird is beaten down by a set of gargantuan brown paws, each adorned with claws nearly 10 centimetres long. The bird twitches in his final moments as he is brought up to the jaws of a brown bear. The cat blinks, then slinks off into the bushes. Along the wind-battered coast, colonies of seals, tens of thousands of seals, grey seals, harbour seals, several metres long and hundreds of kilos in weight, hulking and heaving their way across the sand, little white fluffy seal pups trying not to get caught among the fray, even the occasional walrus. The cold, nutrient-rich waters along these coasts are highly productive and full of fish. On one rocky island, a colony of flightless birds. They look familiar. They're black and white, standing upright on webbed feet, and around 75 centimetres tall. But they aren't penguins. These are great auks, the North Atlantic's answer to Antarctica's most famous resident. It was only in 1852 that the great auk went extinct. Inland, stretching all along the west coast, a forgotten past which once covered 1/5 of this island. Temperate rainforest, 1,000 shades of green, moisture in the air. This place will soon become the place that's known as Manchester, the northern capital. The ground is carpeted with moss. Oak, rowan, holly, willow and hazel writhe and bend, a thick understory with a great network of limbs, each veiled with lichen, ferns and fungi. Ivy cascades down from the canopy, in which dwells a host of tree-living creatures. Red squirrels, long, slender pine martens, tree frogs sing, and warblers, flycatchers, and 100 other species of bird join the chorus. On a branch, a Eurasian lynx, Europe's largest cat, relaxes with her prize. The roe deer she caught in the night is now slumped over the branch next to her. The wolves she shares this vast forest with can smell what she's keeping, and they're coming for her. But she's quite safe, high above the ground, so they can come. She rests her head as the sun sets above the rainforest, and as darkness falls, as female glowworms try to entice a male, green lights ignite all around, illuminating the woodland. As dawn breaks the next day, in what is now central London, steam rises from the surface of a pond. A splash of yellow is revealed as water lilies slowly make salutations to the rising sun. Lurking within it, enormous trout and salmon. But something else, something even more enormous, is lurking in the still pond. The surface breaks and out erupts a set of enormous antlers, nearly 2 meters across. An elk, also known as a moose, feeding on lilies and pondweed. Aquatic plants like this are an excellent source of sodium, something that's hard to find on land. But the antlers of the world's largest deer are about to be dwarfed by the arrival to the pond of another giant. Arriving like an aircraft, flexing its 3-meter wingspan, the pelican. Both the elk and the pelican are particularly at home in wetlands such as these, and they're not the only ones making the trip. As the dawn chorus begins in earnest, hundreds of animals pour in for their morning drink. thundering herd of bison, red deer led valiantly by their stag, a family of wild boar, stripy little piglets in tow, all file in to quench their thirst. This lake is at the heart of a wetland complex, made up of kilometres of interconnected channels, streams, islands, ponds, and dams. It's a beaver pond. In fact, the whole landscape here, which is defined by its complexity, richness of habitats, and its capacity to support so much life, is the product of beavers. But places like this, and the great wilderness which once spread across Britain, have been destroyed over millennia. The clearing of forests and the draining of land for agriculture, first by early farmers and continued by the Romans, the endless felling of trees to erect houses as the population grew, to build ships to fight enemies at sea, to fuel the demands of colonial expansion, the combined effects of 2 world wars. Britain's forests once covered about 3/4 of the island, but now they only cover 13%. We only have 10% of our wetlands left. Just 15% of English river stretches reach good ecological health standards, and the number of rivers in the UK that are considered to be an acceptable level of pollution is 0. The UK is now one of the most nature-depleted countries on Earth. Oh look, an aeroplane. Oh well, I'm not going to get too caught up in decrying modern technology. I, for one, am glad that I can get on a Jet2 plane to anywhere at the drop of a hat. But the landscape of Britain has changed. There's a phenomenon known as shifting baseline syndrome. Each new generation of people accepts the environment they are born into as normal. So, over the generations, the dial slowly shifts, we lose collective memory, and the baseline is moved. This is why many British people may think of being in the countryside as being in nature, when, in reality, it's a manufactured landscape. It's an ecological desert, but it's the new baseline. There's been a movement in recent decades to reject the idea that we should accept this sorry state as the norm, a movement to rewild the UK. The intention being to return British landscapes to something of their former state. Nobody is suggesting that brown bears be given free rein of Leeds city centre, or that bison herds be granted unwavering access to Oxford Street in London, although that might be quite fun to watch. No, the past has come and it's gone, and I'm afraid it's not coming back anytime soon. The rewilding effort strives to welcome back biodiversity where it can, including some of our lost species, and to make space for more robust ecosystems. But how on earth would we even think about beginning that kind of process in such a highly urbanised place, already so far gone? If only there was a magical solution that would completely transform the environment into a richer place for other species, which would make the landscape more resilient in the face of climate change, and which could combat the increasingly severe challenges of flooding, droughts, and wildfires, and which would do all of the above for free. Hang on a minute, there is! And the solution rhymes with beaver. Beaver. Yes, well, it does rhyme with beaver. It's the beaver! And I'm going to find one. I'm marching downhill towards a little patch of woodland as a stream trickles down in the same direction. Pip pip. While behind me are beautiful, but ecologically barren hills, in front of me, there is slowly becoming apparent a buzz in the air. Yes, a buzz of disgusting flying insects as I walk through a cloud of midges. Get off me! But also more generally, the buzz of excitement, the buzz of life. This little stream is part of the River Otter catchment, which is the focal point of beaver reintroduction in England. It's funny how it's called the River Otter, but it's famous for beavers. The River Otter has become a bit of a hotspot for nature lovers. I have actually visited this place once before, in real life, Not that this isn't real. I came here with my friend to watch the beavers, and I'm pleased to say that I saw one. So with that said, I declare that I am a leading authority on beavers. King of the beavers, I declare. And here's a test to see if my friend is listening to this podcast. You know who you are. I'm going to sue you. Why is my business? But your reward for listening is the simple fact of having a bit of a warning before I bring the full force of the law against you, for reasons I forget. Oh, there goes my new nonsense alarm. I recently had it installed. Let me get back on track. Many people come here to watch the beavers. We're in the woodland now. Thick emerald boughs of oak glow in the late afternoon sun. A golden mist spreads throughout the wildwood. White, pink and yellow flowers emerge through the understory, and thick clumps of reeds descend into the trickling water. Clumps. This is a lovely little walking trail I'm on. I wonder if I'll bump into any famous English people on the way. Oh, hang on a minute. Who's this now? No, it can't be. No, it has to be. I recognise him from the pound coin. It's King Charles. He's got his crown on and everything. Am I supposed to bow? I shouldn't. I don't support the monarchy in this day and age, but something very deep inside me has me panicking about what will happen if I don't. Here he comes. Down I go. Good afternoon, Your Majesty. Are you out here looking for the beavers?
Oh yes, I was looking for the beavers. I found one. If only Mummy were here to have seen. She loved beavers. I've been walking up and down for hours in this delightful warm evening sun. I've broken out into a sweat.
Not like your brother then.
I beg your pardon?
Nothing. Where did you see the beaver?
Just down the pathway in a lovely little pond.
Well, that's very promising. I shall go take a look. I love your crown, by the way. Please may I try it on?
Ah, yes. This bloody thing. Well, I don't want William getting his hands on it.
Wow, thanks. Gosh, it's heavy.
Here's a fact. Did you know that I own all the swans in Britain?
Actually, I did know that. That's really lovely.
Good luck in your search for a beaver. I must go now. I'm meeting Camilla. We are going 10-pin bowling. Cheerio.
Well, that sounds like great fun. Good luck to you. Fancy running into him. This crown is a bit of a liability, but it is shiny, so I'll wear it. Where were we? Ah, yes. I was giving a brief history on the life and times of the Fanning sisters, Elle and Dakota. Was I? That doesn't sound right. Ah, yes. The River Otter is ground zero for returning beavers in England. In 2008, the Scottish beaver trial commenced. The Scottish Government granted permission for the trial reintroduction to take place within the Knapdale Forest, and for the effects to be monitored. At around the same time in England, beavers appeared in the River Otter. To this day, no one really knows how they made it back, but it's thought that they were illegally reintroduced. I would like to make a confession here on this podcast. It's a world exclusive. It was me. I was 13 years old, and I took the initiative. Yeah, okay, it wasn't me. But it was someone, and by 2014, the river had a breeding population of beavers. DEFRA, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, with all its red tape and its hostility towards an ancient native resident, wanted to collect the little rodents, or big rodents rather, and remove them from the river. But as the local residents banded together, a coalition was formed in defence of the beavers, including the owners of local estates as well as Exeter University. The group persuaded Natural England to run a 5-year trial. In 2015, the trial commenced, and an investigation into the impact beavers have on lowland England began. The trial ended in 2020, and it was decided, based on the results, that the beavers would be allowed to remain and to naturally repopulate the surrounding hills. Long story short, the results of this trial, alongside those of the Scottish beaver trial, as well as countless studies on a global scale from Canada to Norway, have indicated that the presence of beavers has a disproportionately positive effect on the environment as well as human communities. I don't want to paint an unrealistic, biased image, so let me assure you that I'm going to draw your attention where I can to some of the challenges involved in bringing beavers back. But with that said, I've only got an hour to tell this story, and there are a lot of positives to get through. Let's start with one of the results of the River Otter Beaver trial, as published by Professor Richard Brazier. Now, there's a good chance that his surname is correctly pronounced Brazier, but I, very respectfully, am going to call him Professor Brazier. I wish that was my name, frankly. Professor Brazier found that the dams built by the beavers over the trial period have slowed the speed of the water going through the village downstream and reduced the river's highest flow. In doing so, they've built flood resistance, particularly helpful here because the village in question has flooded 5 times in the past 20 years. We've built many of our towns and cities on marginal land, on low-lying floodplains and in river deltas. Rivers are naturally wild, bending places, mixing gradually via wetland into the surrounding land. We've straightened our rivers, turned them into canals. Rivers like these become downcut, lowering the water table, reducing water supply to the vegetation surrounding the riverbank. The amount of vegetation reduces, the complex network of roots disappears, the riverbank becomes further eroded. The result is that every year, towns across Britain find themselves being flooded, as engorged rivers sweep through their streets, and homes are not only drenched, but laden with sediment as it's washed from upstream. The findings of Professor Brazier, that beavers reduce flood risk, have been found again and again across countries, and as I pass through this woodland, I can start to see exactly how they have that effect. I'm looking around at a beaver-modified wetland now, no longer just a stream. It's because there are dams downstream. Beavers have an overwhelming desire to build. In fact, the very sound of running water triggers them. People are triggered by everything these days, but that's a first. Triggered by running water, beavers are woke. Woke as they may be, they are industrious, and they masterfully construct leaky dams, which slow, but don't completely stop, the flow of water. When the water flow increases, the dams may be washed out. This causes the river to widen, which in turn slows the flow of the river. Sediment builds up as it's trapped by the dam, providing nutrients and enabling the growth of vegetation once more. This raises the water table as a complex wetland forms, increasing the river's capacity and further slowing the flow of the water. Throughout the process, the river rises and reconnects to its floodplain, and the resulting river is far more resilient in the face of extreme weather events, such as very heavy rainfall, so preventing floods. That was all explained to me by Joanna Lumley in a very educational video by Beaver Trust. Now, right here, one of the telltale marks of beaver activity in this area. I'm bending over now, in a very enticing way might I add, and I'm looking at a little stump. No, not my crotch, thank you very much. I'm looking at a dead little tree stump which has been hacked into a pointed spike. The shape and the teeth marks indicate that a beaver is responsible. Hark! Hark! A potential cause for concern. Beavers do be felling trees. Rejoice! A solution. If there is a particularly important tree that has historical or cultural value, it can be protected. A small mesh skirt, or the application of a deterrent paint around its base, will send beavers packing. All around this beaver-modified wetland, as well as live vegetation, there are stumps, fallen trunks, and standing deadwood. Trees which were on land before the beavers came now find their roots and trunk bases completely submerged. Now, given that the UK is desperately in need of more tree cover, is this a bit of a nightmare? Well, a dead tree might seem like a disaster, but in this case, it's not. In fact, it's the opposite. For many species, it means life. The death of some trees is more than compensated for by the overall boost wetlands give to vegetation, but deadwood itself is a valuable habitat, and it's gravely underrepresented within the British landscape. This tree here, a huge oak tree, it's dead. And dead things are part of a healthy, well-balanced ecosystem. And I'll tell you who is thankful for this dead tree. Invertebrates. Literally, and I'm not exaggerating, Thousands and thousands of invertebrate species in the UK alone depend on decaying wood as an essential part of their life cycle. As declared by Sir David Attenborough in relation to invertebrates... Okay, here's my Attenborough impression.
If we and the rest of the backboned animals were to disappear overnight, the rest of the world would get on pretty well. But if they were to disappear, the land's ecosystems would collapse.
I think that was quite good. Other than our very existence, invertebrates provide a host of specific ecosystem services to humanity. Insects pollinate plants, both native and cultivated. They control agricultural pests, and they decompose organic material. Without them, crap would simply pile up. Crap would be everywhere. It would be like walking into Pop Mart. Cover your ears, Labubu's. So, invertebrates have a lot of value to people. We depend on them. As rancid as a cockroach is, or as pointless as a wasp may feel, we need them. And deadwood, beautiful rotting deadwood, with all its nooks and crannies, and its thousands of invertebrates depending on it, provides a huge boost to help with that. Deadwood is just one of many microhabitats which are created by the beavers, and so many of them greatly increase insect numbers. But I'm not quite finished babbling about deadwood yet. Babble, babble, babble. We only stand to benefit from a boost in insects if something is in turn keeping their numbers in check. But here's what I love about standing deadwood. Bats. I bet you £3 that roosting right now somewhere in this hollow, rotten trunk are some insect-eating bats. From the bat's perspective, that's what I call a good deal. Not only a beautiful residence, but one which is teeming with food. All 18 of the UK's bat species are insectivorous. Now I'll read out a quote from the University of Gloucestershire's Professor of Applied Ecology, Anne Goodenough. I'll be the judge of that.
To be flying around to find insects and eat insects is massively energetically costly for a bat. So if they can be feeding in an area where there's loads and loads of invertebrates, it's basically like you and I going to an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yes, Anne, I believe that quote was good enough. Professor Goodenough points out that beaver-modified wetlands produce a huge variety of habitats within a small area. I've already pointed that out, but thank you, Professor Goodenough. Bats need different habitats for different parts of their daily routine. Feeding, drinking, roosting. They might have special maternity roosts too. So when there are lots of microhabitats very close to each other, and there's lots of food to eat, that is of huge benefit to bats. And as I mentioned, bats are important for keeping insect numbers in check, including mosquitoes. So there you go. Bats, helping to prevent nasty itchy bites and malaria. Thank you, bats. Thank you, beavers. Research by Professor Goodenough and her colleague Claire Graham reported that the presence of beavers led to increases of over 200% in richness, that's species diversity, and 800% higher abundance in emergent aquatic invertebrates. All in all, this led to a 40% increase in bat activity. Let's see what other microhabitats we can spot which will be leading to this result. Here. We have what appears to be an entry point into the pond, leading to a long canal which stretches across the area. This is a channel the beavers have constructed to allow them access in and out of their pond. A beaver channel is used for transporting the wood that they fell. The land around is waterlogged, and I'll tell you what I'm not seeing, and in fact, what I haven't seen all day. Stinging nettles. Now, if you weren't yet sold on beavers, here's the clincher as far as I'm concerned. Anyone from Britain who's been for a walk through the countryside can attest to the fact that, though the air smells of shit and it's raining, stinging nettles are really the worst part of being outside. These are plants which can carpet the floor, and which appear out of nowhere to curse your skin with sharp poison. You'll leave a stinging nettle attack not only with painful lumps all over your leg, but you're standing there, your trousers pulled down, degrading yourself with a dock leaf. It's a long story. Look, I'm sure nettles have an important ecological function. I'm sure some silly little insect lays its eggs on nettle stems, but I, for one, can stand to see them go. And where the soil is logged with water, nettles struggle to grow. One study found that waterlogging reduced the coverage of stinging nettles from 30% of the understory to just 5%. And with that in mind, I simply demand that beavers be released everywhere. Churches, libraries, nursing homes. If I ever so much as look upon a stinging nettle ever again in my life, then I will be suing the British government without delay. Gosh, I'm litigious today. I shall demand compensation. I will insist that Rachel Reeves herself comes and removes all remaining nettles with her bare hands. That's bare, spelled B-A-R-E. I'm not suggesting that she has big hairy hands. Here's another thing. Beavers cause there to be a variety in canopy height as a result of their activity. This means more light can penetrate the floor, which in turn encourages the growth of vegetation. So that's great really, isn't it? Ah, look over here. It's a little pile of soil and debris. This is a beaver mound. These little erections are piled up by beavers, which they cover in their scent to mark their territories. These mounds ward away dispersing beavers that might be passing through the area. If a fight does break out between rival beavers, then they might resort to beating each other with sticks, which is a lovely image. A beaver's scent mound is covered in castoreum, which is a brown, gooey substance secreted from the anus of the beaver, which smells and tastes like vanilla. I'm not sure who was the first person to discover that. Anyway, because of that sicko, castoreum became a common additive to ice cream. So, if you've ever eaten vanilla ice cream, you've eaten castoreum. I'm just kidding there. Thankfully, it's a thing of the past. Now we're able to synthesize similar chemicals, so you'll be pleased to hear that castoreum is no longer used in food. But it was. I am getting a hint of vanilla. Should I lick the mound? No. That's an intrusive thought. We don't have to act on all of our intrusive thoughts. Back to this beaver channel. It's a gentle slope, and it is, in and of itself, a microhabitat. It's a great place for getting in and out of the water. It's very enticing, in fact. Should I get in? It's definitely an intrusive thought, but we're allowed to act on our intrusive thoughts sometimes. I'm going to do it. I'll just crawl on the ground first, and then gently enter the channel. What lovely fresh water. Beavers have been shown to cool down rivers because they cause the water to slow, to spread across the land and to mix with the cool soil, and they can improve water quality too. A study in the US by Stanford University revealed that beavers can increase nitrate removal from the water by up to 50%, so they're helping to clean our rivers. Beaver channels like this, which shoot off from the main pond and are shallower and protected, tend not to get as many fish as the pond itself. Insects, including species such as pond skaters and water striders, which look like dinner to fish, stand to benefit from the lack of fish in these channels. As a result of this boost in aquatic invertebrate life, there's more prey for other species, birds included. Oh look, we have joining us now a prime example of this, a mother and her ducklings. One study showed that the presence of beavers led to an increase in the number of ducklings within broods. Lovely. I'm able to reference study after study because we're currently living during an exciting time for beaver science. The buzz is real, the benefits are real, and they're being demonstrated empirically time and time again. The channel is getting deeper now, and I'm able to manoeuvre myself using a gentle breaststroke. Let's see if I can find ourselves a nice lodge and dam. I know they're around here somewhere. We're entering the pond now. Ponds have a disproportionately positive impact on biodiversity for their size. Across England and Wales in the year 1880, there were 800,000 ponds, but by 1996, only 228,900 ponds remained. That's not enough ponds, I'm afraid. Guys, I'm sorry, but this is about microhabitats again. This pond is another microhabitat, and it's another great place for insects and all the animals which eat them. A fast-flowing river without beavers provides home to insects which can thrive in fast-flowing water, such as types known as shredders and scrapers, which scrape algae from rocks. When beavers build their leaky dams, portions of the river remain fast-flowing, suitable for shredders and scrapers, but on the other side, still water accumulates in ponds. Many aquatic invertebrates depend on still water to survive. These tend to be hunters and collectors. Collectors benefit from the accumulation of leaf litter, and the predators benefit from an increase in prey. And arriving here now is one example of an insect which loves still water, a beautiful bright blue dragonfly, which has just landed on a nearby stone. As the sun sets and the warm evening rays fall upon its stained glass wings, it's amazing to think that when these beautiful creatures are in their larval stage, they are truly rancid things. They can live in beaver ponds for many years before they mature. Actually, I think that's best not to think about now whilst I'm swimming around. Thankfully, horrible creatures like these are eaten by amphibians, so our native frogs, newts and toads have lots of food, so they're able to thrive too. Of course, they also need water to live in, so amphibians gain very directly from the formation of beaver ponds. The light is slowly beginning to fade. Already above, the bats are coming out. They're echolocating, zooming here and there to capture their insects, which I'm apparently obsessed with. This is the perfect time to spot a beaver because they are crepuscular, meaning they are active at dawn and dusk. Now then, where is that godforsaken lodge? I demand that it reveals itself. Oh, here it is. And there's a dam beyond. We're yet to see a beaver in the flesh today, but this lodge is tremendously exciting. What I'm looking at, if I had to describe it to you, is a huge dome-shaped structure in the middle of the pond. That's the lodge. The lodge is built using sticks, mud and rocks, and it's accessed via underwater entrances. It's even built with a ventilation shaft right on top, which allows the structure to breathe. Beyond the lodge is the dam. It's several meters wide, and it's also a primarily wooden structure. Both of these structures are microhabitats, and beavers might find themselves sharing their lodge with mice and frogs. I would love to know what it looks like inside a beaver lodge. That's why I brought this waterproof head torch with me, which I'm currently removing from my person and placing over my new crown and around my forehead. Now, nobody else should ever do this, but in the name of science, I'm going to swim through one of those underwater entrances and take a look. Who knows what I'll find. Victoria Beckham? What are you doing here?
Well, I was here with David. We was looking for the beavers and I got lost.
Goodness, did you manage to find a beaver?
Yes, one was just here actually. It was very lovely towards me. It told me it was a big fan of the Spice Girls, although it said Jerry was its favourite.
Victoria, I heard that you were dancing in a very specific way at your son Brooklyn's wedding. May I please see the dance?
Well, I don't usually break it out unless there's cause for celebration, but I suppose we are celebrating the return of British beavers, so of course, here's my dance. What do you think? Do you like it?
You know what? I did like it. I can't see why anyone would be upset with that. They're probably jealous. Well, I just came to see what the inside of the lodge looked like, and it's like I imagined. It's a dark room made out of sticks. It's quite cosy. Would you like me to help you find David?
No, it's alright. I think I'll just stay here. To be honest, it's been nice to escape from the packs and the media.
Fair enough. Well, goodbye then, Victoria. Enjoy your solitude. Poor old Victoria. Between you and me, the dancing was not good. Very inappropriate. I hope those beavers don't catch her doing that. They'll start begging for the reintroduction of wolves so that they can be eaten and forget what they've seen. I'm at the dam now. I think I've done enough close-up inspecting of the beavers' good work, so I'm going to get out of this pond and continue walking like a normal person. I mentioned before that beaver channels tend to accommodate fewer fish, but the channels are just one of many microhabitats that beavers create. Overall, beavers have been shown to greatly increase fish numbers. It might be easy to imagine that the construction of dams might adversely affect those species which need to migrate up and down the river, such as the native Atlantic salmon, but in countries where wild salmon are important culturally and economically, such as Norway, beavers can be very active. One case study by Nick Bowers and his colleagues took place in Bridge Creek, Oregon. Fish were tracked, and their numbers and movements were monitored over a time period which saw the return of beavers to the creek. They tagged over 100,000 fish, and following the beavers' arrival, documented a 50% increase in the survival rate of fish, as well as a 200% increase in abundance. One of the ways this happens is by the diversity of by the different types of, how do I say this? It's microhabitats again. Without beavers, the fast-flowing stream bed is made up simply of cobble, but with the presence of dams, different sediment sizes begin to be dropped in different areas, at different speeds of the water. The result is that rather than just being covered in uniform cobble, the bed contains patches of cobble, patches of gravel, and patches of fine sediment, which gets dropped off by the dam where the water is practically still. The different patches have different uses. Fish use gravel for spawning, whereas they might use cobble to hide in whilst they're feeding. The boost in insect numbers, once again, also provides fish with prey. Salmon, which will head upstream when it's time to spawn, seem able to traverse the dam networks erected by beavers. Many beaver dams form side channels where the water flows around the dam, providing a direct route for fish like these. It's a welcome boost, given that within the past 20 years, British salmon have declined by 70%, and Atlantic salmon were declared endangered in Britain in 2023. Beavers can help with that. At this point, here's my moment of honest reflection. Beavers raise the water level. Yes, they do. They build wetlands by flooding areas. That might be a problem sometimes. Part of a farmer's field might be lost to beaver activity. Part of the land used for agriculture may become submerged. As such, the locations to which beavers are returned need careful consideration. In certain places, perhaps a broad, low-lying floodplain surrounded by houses might be a less suitable site. And if beavers do naturally migrate to an area, it might be that there needs to be some intervention. It's a lovely idea in theory to imagine that they might be able to exist completely without any level of human tinkering, but in a place like the UK, where there are people everywhere, and all the land has been claimed by someone for some use, intervention can be a good way of managing stakeholders and mitigating problems. In the Beaver Project of Devon, there were 2 sites where the effects of the beavers were considered to be unacceptable, and the dams were removed. But the majority of landowners, including farmers, were on the whole very supportive of the return of beavers. The presence of beavers in the landscape can actually send a very hopeful message that biodiversity and farming can coexist, and that one doesn't have to eliminate the other. Professor Brazier notes in his report that the support of the landowners affected is greatly influenced by the ability to respond to any problems the beavers might cause. The presence of beavers can actually provide the economic benefit to farmers and landowners of reducing flood risks and helping them to avoid damage costs. There's an economic benefit to the land being made more resilient in the face of extreme weather. And speaking of extreme weather, beavers can help protect against droughts and wildfires. I know it might sound crazy, but those are things affecting even rainy England. The climate is changing. News flash, the climate is changing. In 2019, the UK's previous highest temperature on record was eclipsed by 0.2 degrees, taking it to 38.7 degrees Celsius. Then, in 2022, this record was smashed and a high of 40.3 degrees Celsius was met. Last year, 2025, was on average the warmest and sunniest year in recorded history. Britain even experienced a megafire, which burned through more than 110 square kilometres of peat and woodland. The wetness incorporated into the landscape as a result of beavers is a huge defence against the spread of wildfires. One study found that rivers without beavers burned 3 times more intensely than those with beavers. And as for droughts, beaver wetlands can remain wet for years and years after a drought has been raging through the surrounding landscape. That might be more of a threat than we realise. The UK has less water per head than any other European country with the exception of Belgium and Cyprus. So yeah, there's that. Those beavers keep us wet. I've just thought of another thing. It's not about microhabitats, I promise, but I feel like this has to be the last positive effect, because otherwise we'll never leave. It's not a big deal, this last one. Well, it's kind of a big deal. It's carbon capture. Beaver ponds do emit some gases like methane, but there is an increasing body of evidence to suggest that, overall, beaver dams and the resulting wetlands they create act as carbon sinks, storing carbon and helping combat climate change. Gosh, it's all rather convincing in my opinion, especially the bit about nettles. So, where is Britain up to? Well, the beaver is now an officially recognised native species across England, Scotland and Wales, which means it has legal protection throughout Britain. It's illegal to kill or trap one without a licence. There are thousands of beavers living wild across Britain, at sites within the Scottish Highlands all the way down here in Devon. There are even beavers living in Ealing, London, behind a McDonald's. The government's nature minister has declared that welcoming the beaver back will be a key part of the proposed mission to protect and restore nature. In 2026, 100 beavers will be released across Britain to add to the growing population. So that's good news. You know what would just make this day perfect? If I could catch a glimpse of a beaver for myself. Just now as dusk turns to night. We know they're out today. The King and Posh Spice have both seen one. Maybe they're over...
Where are you, beavers?
Can you hear that?
I didn't come all the way from the Magdalena River to not even see a single beaver. Beavers.
I recognise that voice.
Girlies, where are you at? You guys are degrading me. Come say hey. I want to see a beaver.
Vanessa?
Oh my gosh, hey girl. What's the tea?
Oh, Vanessa. I'm just exploring the river, trying to find a beaver. You know, they haven't been in this country for 400 years. But after...
Have you seen a beaver? I hear they make really good ice cream from their butt. And I want to try it. I want to put it in a juice.
Oh, well, no, I haven't. Wait. Over there, swimming with a branch in its teeth under the cascading moonlight. It's a beaver. You know, it looks right at home. It feels like they never left.
How do I get it to give me its butt juice?
I don't think you can, Vanessa. I don't think you can. But I'll buy you an ice cream.
Wait.
What are we waiting for?
Wait. You're gonna get me a free ice cream?
Sure I will. Let's go.
Okay, great. Let's go.
Good night, beavers.
Yeah, whatever. Good night.
So, Vanessa, how have you been since we last met?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I've been doing lots of yoga, having lots of juice.
Ah, well, for the last time, for Wet and Wild, I'm back in my kitchen sink. What truly rich habitats beavers create. They provide homes for insects, fish, birds, bats, amphibians, even a pink hippo. And they make life better for humans too. They prevent flooding, wildfires, and they help combat climate change. And I'll close with something that's less tangible, but I'd argue just as important as those other reasons, which is, it adds an element of magic to know that if you go for a walk outside, you might come across other species going about their lives. The world is a better place to be in when we're sharing it with others. Sorry, I just made myself gag a little bit there, but it is true. Thank you for listening to this episode. And thank you very much for joining me throughout this series. Together we have travelled from the bottom of the Mariana Trench to the outer reaches of the galaxy. We've gone from the Great Barrier Reef to a gentle English stream. Thank you, Damon Macmillan, for the music, I'll end now with a poem. This one's called Menti Bee. She's new here, and it could be great. She's moved from the great beyond. It was time to find her own place, so she left her family pond. It's good enough for starters, this river, she does think. But there's just one problem with this place, and it's making my heart sink. Sinking, breaking, falling out. She's fixating on this dilemma. On the verge now of an aneurysm, her body starts to tremor. Blood is rushing to her head, and now her skin is prickling. She has to stop it, right away. The sound of water trickling. She loses interest in all else, and she is quickly jolted into a frenzy which must see the trickling water halted. Although the stream's polluted, right now the water's dregs. Her dam's half made of wood, the other half crisp packets from Greg's. Her lodge is made of wood as well, at least that's partly true. It's mostly made of plastic bags and cans of iron brew. But with her work she's happy, and we humans should also be. For she's cleaning up our rivers and she's doing it for free. There's a McDonald's right behind her. Now we're living side by side. A vision of the future we can both look on with pride. Until she hears more trickling water. She thinks that's not meant to be. So she carries working on her dam to avoid a Menti Bee.